Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I, honest to goodness, do not even know where to start. Holy moly. I don't know. Honestly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just come in here and shake my head sometimes because of the absolute nonsense that's coming out of the opposition. They want to support police, they're thanking our police are amazing, they say on one hand, and then on the other hand, they're trying to draw two small amendments to powers of entry for police, a very straightforward mechanical operational amendment to the legislation, somehow trying to link that to what they call integrity issues within police, which I dispute and don't agree with, linking it to the Justice Blow review into the promotions that have taken place from superintendent and above. They are all over the shop, Madam Speaker. And then you've got the opposition leader and the member for Johnston and the member for Nightcliff talking about listening to the experts. Well, here's a gem for you. How's the High Court of Australia? Does that fit your criteria of an expert, the High Court of Australia? I'm not sure who else you'd like me to ask, but it pretty much in this country doesn't get higher than that, Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So I am truly concerned, actually, about the state of the opposition and crossbench, because this is new lows of embarrassment. And I think what it shows is they are just so desperate to find a platform. They're so desperate to find a voice. They will just flick and flutter, mud and guff and junk around, hoping that it hits someone. Their machine gun approach to government scrutiny and accountability is much the same as their machine gun approach to government, where if they shoot enough bullets, hopefully it's going to hit something, Mr. Deputy Speaker. That's not how you govern, and I've got a red hot tip for you because I was the opposition leader for a very long time. That's not how you do opposition either, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So I'm happy to take you through a bit of a master class in surviving opposition for a very long time, opposition leader. But honest to God, this is an embarrassing degradation of parliamentary debate if I've ever seen one. We had the member for Nightcliff saying that this legislation was a thought bubble. A High Court of Australia thought bubble? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. That we need to listen to the experts. Oh, like the High Court of Australia? Would that be the people we would... I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they would be the people we listen to. I don't know. And then the member for Johnston said, and I wrote it down because it was good. She said, we need to be making laws in consultation with the people who make our community safe, you know, the people on the ground. Like our police? Would they be the people on the ground, the experts that we would go to for community safety? I feel like that's the logical explanation. To me, that would be normal. If there was a policing issue, a law and order issue that involved crime, I would go to the police because I don't know, maybe I got it wrong, but I thought that was their job. I thought they were the frontline experts in community safety. Much like the High Court of Australia, they're kind of the experts for the law. But anyway, let's not split hairs over some of these issues, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I could stand here all night and tear apart the rubbish, the absolute rubbish that's now captured on Hansard forever, and in 50 years, some young kid's going to be reading this thinking, oh, bloody hell, that was a bit different back then. Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to draw all of the hysterical members' attention to the fact that we are debating two very, very simple, highly operational amendments to legislation that have come from the community safety experts, the police, off the back of the legal experts, the High Court of Australia. Just to put my expert credentials out there for those who care so much about them, that's where this has come from. And no, we won't be waiting for the Justice Blow inquiry to happen because it has absolutely nothing to do with it, because the experts have told us what is needed to give police the powers they need. And just to allay even further the concerns about powers of entry and all the rubbish scattergun approach of those opposite, police have these exact same powers for, wait for it, a community corrections order, so they can enter a premises for that. They can enter a premises for an intensive community corrections order. They can enter a premises for breach of suspended sentence, and they can enter a premises for breach of interim and final supervision orders for serious sex offenders. So, you follow that along. Okay, that's quite a good list. Is it the best list? No. Wow, what's our laws trying to do? Make the list even better. And that's why, if you're on parole, let's not forget, what is parole? Let's go back to basics. Parole is where the parole board lets you out of jail a little bit earlier on the proviso you've been in jail because you're a criminal, and then the parole board look at your situation and say, all right, you can go back out into the community to start your reintegration and to start your reconnection, and you've done your time. Theoretically, they're ready to come back to the community, but you have to follow these certain rules, whatever they might be, and it's different every single time because of course, every criminal is different. So the parole board, again, I'd probably call them experts, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't know about you. They make that assessment on a very personal, crim-by-crim basis, right? There's no one-size-fits-all parole order. This is on a crim-by-crim basis. We give them rules to follow. What we're going to do tonight, hopefully, Madam Speaker, and with the indulgence of those opposite, is let our police find those people when they don't do what the parole board said. Yeah. I'm cool with that. I don't know about anyone else. I think that's a great idea. Enforcing the law. Who would have thought? You can have a law, but if you don't enforce the law, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's probably not worth that much. And this is a big part. I think it sends a very clear insight into how those opposite oversaw the highest rates of crime we've ever seen in the Northern Territory, because they fundamentally miss that point. You can have a law, but if you're not out there enforcing it, people start to push the boundaries, and that's why we're intervening earlier in young people's lives, because we need them to know we care about them. We're going to pull them up, we're going to tell them what they did was wrong, and we're going to help them make better decisions, because there's no point waiting till they're an adult criminal and they end up in the big house to cry poor about how we should have helped them when they were little. You cannot ignore behaviour. So these amendments go to the core of enforcing the expectations of not just the community. This is actually the expectations either of the parole board or whoever gave the domestic violence order. So, of course, it is an element of it. We'll support safer domestic violence victims, because this is about enforcing. So there's the parole component and then there's the DVO component. It's about making sure that, again, so similar situation. So parole is about someone who is a criminal convicted in prison being let out a little bit earlier with terms and conditions. The other is if you have a domestic violence order of any description, because they're many and varied, that they will have terms and conditions as well. And a very, very common one is that the person who the DVO has been issued to is not allowed to either be in the presence of the person who sought the order, or is not allowed to drink in the presence of the person who sought the order. Because usually there is a strong connection between drinking and then ongoing offending and domestic violence. So they're just very, very run-of-the-mill, ordinary things that happen on a daily basis, Madam Speaker. And so all the police need is greater opportunity to make sure that they're, one, sending a clear message that if you think a DVO is just a piece of paper that you can ignore, you're wrong. And that there is actually an opportunity for police to be able to find people who are thumbing their nose at the law, who have a DVO and aren't doing it properly, are ignoring it. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we're very, very comfortable with these amendments. And Opposition Leader, just a red hot tip. You can't come in here and say we'd love to support better powers for police and vote every single better power for police down. You vote against everything we bring to this parliament. And out of all of the ones we've brought, this is probably the most straightforward, least complicated, most operational, practical, tried and tested. This is not new. It's not even interesting. It's just really practical stuff that gives police certainty and security in the execution of their powers they already had, as I said, Madam Speaker, for a range of other very, very similar things. And of course, then, not to mention the law, then there are all of the procedural ways in which police have accountability and all of the things they have to follow in all of their interactions with any member of the public at any point in time. So there is absolutely nothing in this legislation that can cause legitimate concern to anyone. We then had the member for Nightcliff talk extensively about DV, and all three of them actually sort of tried to conflate issues and sort of say this was our answer to DV. Unlike those opposite who think they've got the magical solution to everything, we recognise this is a complicated problem, like many other problems in the Territory, that take a multifaceted approach. This is one rather small, might I add, tool in which we can help with enforcement, which again, put it in a practical sense. If person A has a DVO against them and is not allowed to drink in the presence of the person whom they would usually bash, do we not think that police should have the opportunity, if they suspect that person A is indeed drinking near person B, to go in and breath test them? Because person A was either doing the right thing or the wrong thing. So the police will breath test them, and it'll either blow over or it won't. It'll be 0, 0, 0, or it'll be 0.2 or whatever it's going to be. And then it gives police the opportunity, okay, yep, you did drink, you've breached your DVO, let's go have a walk and come with me, I'll give you a free ride in the back of the paddy wagon. And whilst that might be unpleasant for person A, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. They're already on a warning. This is not like a surprise to them that, what, the police are coming to my house and I'm drinking what? This is a surprise. No, they have a DVO. It also then means those two people are separated, and that person who's drunk when they shouldn't have has no opportunity to inflict harm and misery and pain on the victim. So this is what we're talking about, and how those opposites could turn this into something other than it is absolutely beyond me. The talk about the Royal Commission, and I love the praise for Minister Carl. She is an excellent minister. We are so proud to have her in our team, and she is doing a fantastic job. I'm glad you noticed, because I tell you what, the way you ask her questions in Parliament, you would think you never heard her answer, because you ask her every day the same 3 questions, and every day she explains it to you, and every day you wake up and feel the need to ask it again. I don't know what is going on. But at least at the bottom of all that, and you should take heart in that, Minister Carl, they do think you're doing a good job. So don't feel bad about repeating yourself as often as you have to. I guess little tiny bits are sinking in. But from a police perspective, you talk about the coroner's report. Police have implemented 10, 11 and 12. Children and families have already done 15 and 7 from memory, Minister. Yep, we've got nods, and there's plenty more being worked on. So work is underway, but it's not in the utopian way that those opposite believe. And the stunt today in question time from the opposition leader with the big, heavy, thick report that she tabled. Oh, it was so tricky. I was so worried. May 2023, that report was done, and she's got the gall to come in and ask me what we've done about it. What did you do about it? You were the Attorney General. The report literally would have come to you. I mean, it's just unbelievable, Madam Speaker. Then because it was the doorstop, she didn't get to read it. That's why. It was next to Langaland, got between the Turk and Langaland, and ComSec reports were piling up on top of it, and it all got really, really confusing. Even the ICAC report for Operation, whatever that one was called, got stuck in with it. Sirocco got stuck in with it. Then we had all these allegations about the cherry picking of crime statistics, even though my own press release acknowledged that crime was going up in other areas. We've talked very, very consistently right from day one about that the work we've done is just the beginning. There's a long way to go. I explained that again in question time today. There's some good indicative data, and we're really proud of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But in other areas, there's a lot more work to do. But even where we're seeing some improvements, there's a lot more work to do. None of this is like, oh, okay, house break-ins are done. Well, that's good. We'll forget about that. It is a continuous process. And when you talk about a continuous process, I come back to what I'm standing here tonight to talk about. a piece of meaningful legislation that's come from the front line and the experts to give police absolute certainty in the use of their powers in a way that makes absolute sense, to enforce laws that already exist, because the police's job is to enforce the law. That is, actually, they are law enforcement officers. Enforce means make people do what the law says to do. And so if we don't give them the actual power to do that, what are we saying to police? We stand there and look pretty, officer. I mean, you know, the blue uniform's great, just stand there, you'll be right. That'll terrify people enough and crime will disappear. That's not how it works. I mean, you know, obviously the deterrent impact is good and the uniforms are great now, cops are wonderful, but they need a little bit more than just being able to stand on the street corner and wave at people, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They actually need the power, legal power, unchallengeable, unquestionable legal power to enforce the law. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I feel like I've probably covered that. If there's any further questions from those opposite, I'm sure they'll ask. I know, and I thank the member for Mulca, Yingia Gayula, for his amendments, and I've read through those amendments, and obviously we'll go through those in consideration in detail stage. Member for Mulca, we won't be accepting your amendments, but of course you'll have the opportunity to speak to them, and I'm very happy to respond to each of them as we go along, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So thank you to everyone who did contribute, despite the really misguided way in which those opposite did. I really would encourage you to be less hysterical about every single thing the CLP bring into the Parliament. There is no ulterior motive here other than to do the job we set out to achieve, the job that Territorians elected us to do, and that is to rebuild the economy, i.e. Territory Coordinator, merits review, all of the other things we've been doing, to reduce crime, like our reducing crime packages, Declan's Law, post and boast, mandatory sentencing, knife crime wanding, this piece of legislation. It is all designed to make the lives of our police easier. If their jobs are easier, more certain, more efficient, they can be back out on the streets faster. They can be doing proactive policing, which this bill before us today goes to the core of proactive policing, because if you can stop a crime before it happens, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that's like, it doesn't get better than that. That is the whole point. So often our police have to attend after. So often. They're at the road crash. They're at the death, they're at the stabbing, they're at the sexual offence, and they are there to put it all together after and deliver justice, be part of that justice system. But on the rarer opportunities for police to do the proactive stuff, I can't believe for a second that anyone in this chamber would stand in their way. And that's what those others are saying. That's what those others are saying. And yet last night they talked extensively about DV, question time has been dominated by DV, but they won't allow our police to enforce domestic violence orders. You may as well be turning your back on victims, because what's the point of having one if it means nothing? It's a victim who goes and gets the domestic violence order. The victim goes and says, I want a DVO against that person. The court or the police or whoever issues it with the restrictions, and then someone has to make sure that the person is doing what is stipulated. That person or those people are our police. If you're going to say, nah, we don't actually really want you to do that, what you're saying to the victim is your DVO is not worth the paper it's written on. And I'm not prepared to do that, and neither are my team. And if you are, fill your boots. You can explain that to the sector you profess to love so much. You can explain that to the victims who go out and get DVOs. You can explain that to your friends and your family and your constituents. But we won't have to, Madam Speaker. We will not have to, because we're not standing for this. And just to give you a little bit of data, there were 4,021 breach DVOs offences charged over a 12-month period between 2024 and 2025. And so it happens often. It happens often that people breach their DVOs. And what we want to make sure is that compliance is up to the highest possible standard to be keeping people safe. Because we don't believe that they're just a piece of paper, and we don't believe in telling victims that they're not worth the paper they're written on. That's what you're saying. We stand with victims. We stand with the people who've been brave enough to go out and seek those orders. We stand with the parole board who's given someone an opportunity to recommence their life in the community early, which is a great system. We've got no problem with the system. But it's a privileged opportunity. A court has said to you, you're serving 5, you're serving 10, you're serving 20 years. And if the parole board says to you, all right, we'll wipe a year off that, 2 years off that, whatever it might be, absolutely there's an expectation you're going to be on your best behaviour. Absolutely. It's not dissimilar to your own kids. If they muck up and you take the iPad away for an hour or two, you say, all right, I'll give it back to you, be on your best behaviour, and they do the same thing again, what happens? You up it. Right, no iPad for a week. How do you like that? And so the parole board has a really important function to undertake. In giving a privilege, there is a responsibility. In having a right, there is a responsibility to exercise that right properly. That's what we're talking about, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is basic 101 fundamentals, and those opposite can't even bring themselves to do something as basic as this. They haven't learnt a thing from the election. We can hold out no hope in them supporting any increases on police powers, any laws that support community safety. Because if they can't support something identified by the High Court of Australia and by the police as such an operational frontline measure to support the enforcement of laws that particularly relate to people who are criminals being out on our street early or people who do have active DVOs against them, then God help us.